Hi everyone, this is Kyle Marshall, aka Againstime from grinderschool.com. Today I will be doing a live video for you on Ultimate Poker. This is one of the two available websites in Nevada. They just recently updated their software. As far as sit and goes go, this is the best site available. If you're more interested in cash games, WSOP.com is a good option. I do most of my playing on here obviously because I'm a sit and go specialist, and we have a couple games already going. The structure on this website is generally seven-handed. They do have some 9 and 6-handed variants, but most of the games that run are seven-handed. The payout structure is similar to what you would see on like a PokerStars or Full Tilt tournament. It's 50, 30, 20. And then of course, you just have 2 less players than most of those games. It's pretty much the same. Otherwise, the blind levels are similar as well. You start in the 15-30 instead of the 10-20, but you move up at the same rate as you do on the other sides. It goes 15-30, 25-50, 50-100, 75-150, and so on. I have 2 games already going for you here. I'm mostly going to be playing in the $10 to $20 bracket. I think that's where most of you are probably playing, and so I think that's a good place to be. As most of you know, we don't have HUDs available yet for these poker sites, so I will be playing fairly blind. The only knowledge I'll have about my opponents is previous play against them. Right now, before we have too many games going, I'll go ahead and mention the players I do recognize. Tile this out. I will just check here in the face of limp. AK-47S is a reg. It's not someone I consider particularly strong, but he is a reg, and he does have some knowledge of how to play the game correctly. Player 1 is a stronger reg, and I recognize him in a lot more of my games. So those are the 2 players that I recognize, and most of the others are fairly unknown to me. I'll try to keep the game count at 4. That seems to be a good number to do. As most of you know, in the early levels, I like to play a tight, aggressive game. Like right here, I'm not even limping with the 8-5, even for 15 chips. And then in the later levels, I like to become more aggressive. Here, I'm going to 3-bet to 300. I don't think it's too big that I'll get folds a lot of the time. I think I can get some value here. I don't want to just flat call this. I want to put a little bit of pressure on my opponent. He does call me here. This is a fairly good board for us. He's likely to have hit it and still be behind. So we're going to lead out fairly strong here. I'm going to bet 375, and I'll be planning on getting all in on the turn. This is a hand where the value of our hand compared to what's in the pot makes it a situation where we really can't let it go. We're committed to this pot. So we'll go ahead and get all in on the turn here. Hope our opponent doesn't have us beat here. Looks like we do have the best hand. Here I get a raise from the hijack into 4 players. I'm just going to shove all in. I've been really passive on this table. I haven't played a lot of hands, and this player is likely to be stealing from me. And it's not supposedly behind most players' hijack range anyway, so I think that was a good spot for a re-steal. Here it's okay to limp for 30 on the button with the King-9. And we'll go ahead and make a raise here with the Ace-Jack. Standard for me in this level is 125, so King-9 go. And it looks like we have our full set going now. I will try to stop loading up too many games for a minute. Looks like we'll be okay. I do get called with the Ace-Jack raise. This flop is fairly coordinated. We didn't have any part of it. I'll just shove the King-Queen suited for about 12.5 blinds. That's pretty standard for me in blind versus blind. I like to shove fold all the way up to around 13 or 14 blinds. I'm actually just going to check behind with the Ace-Jack. Our hand still has showdown value, and it's a bad flop for us. I would have probably bet the turn on most turn cards, whether we hit it or not. But with the ace coming down, I'll definitely go ahead and try to put some value out here, and I'll bet about 2/3 pot. Let the 3-5 and the 9 deuce go. Okay, we do get a call here on the turn. We could still potentially be behind here. If he leads out for a reasonable size bet, I'll just go ahead and call. If he checks like he did, I'm going to bet about 300 here. If he raises me, I will be folding, but I'm just trying to get a little more value against the king or queen. It's possible he could check into us with a stronger hand, but most of the time that won't be the case. We did get, looks like we split the pot here. Obviously, we'll be raising the ace-queen suited. 225 is my standard in this level. I don't really deviate my raise size ever based on the strength of my hand. My raise sizes are pretty much based on the effective stack size of the table. I try to start out around 3x, and as the tournament gets closer and closer to the high blinds, I slowly get towards 2 1/4. I don't usually do a lot of min raises. This is close. I have to call here. I mean, this is a re-steal against a player who's a reg. If this were a non-reg, there would be some rare situations where you fold this, but you just can't fold here. You're getting 1.7 to 1. We were behind in this situation, but this player would re-steal with a lot of hands worse than us. And with 1.7 to 1 odds, you really just have to call here with the ace-queen suited against his range. I believe against this opponent playing against him before that he would probably even re-steal deuces here, so this is certainly a call. Okay, here with the queen jack, there's a lot of other players in this. We have the open-ended straight draw. We have a chance to possibly get a free card here, and so we'll take it. Okay, this player has limped on my blind before, and we're on the bubble, so this is a vulnerable spot for him. He thinks that I'll play this tightly most of the time. He could sometimes be trapping here, but this is a good abuse spot because we're close in chips, and he's limped in my blind before, and so I'll go ahead and take advantage of that. It also helps because of this short stack here. Let's go ahead and check the queen jack again. The king nine, player leads out for pot. I'm just going to call here. I don't think it's worthwhile raising. I just want to go call and see kind of where I stand. We'll isolate here with king jack suited. Would have shoved had it been folded to us. Okay, we do get a fold. Wanted to see what the player behind me would do. Our hand improves in the sense that we now have draws available should our hand not be best. This player leading out, though, out of position would generally only do so with a very strong hand here, in my opinion. However, I am going to bet again so that if he raises here, I can let it go. But if he calls here and we hit our draw, I'll get more value out of it, and it could potentially block a river bet. We see that we do get a raise here, which leads me to believe that most likely my opponent would have had something like two pair, like sixes and sevens or sixes and eights. And he wanted to check raise here to close out the action. I don't blame him for that. That's a solid way to play it. He could have also let out for a nearly pot-sized bet, and that would have been fine as well. If my opponent didn't have that two-pair hand, or like I expected, like a strong draw, he probably would have either folded there or just called the bet. Would have been he probably would have just called the bet, and then had I improved on the river, I would have expected more value, especially from the flush, if not the straight. And then of course, if he checks and I bet and he shoves like he does, he pretty much tells us where he is. He has a set or two pair most likely, and I think it's the good time to get out of the way because a lot of times our hand won't improve in that situation. A lot of the value is lost when your top pair is no longer good, and even improving to two pair would probably not be good in that situation. All right, we are still in the bubble up here. One player is very short stacked at 2 blinds. We'll be looking to not get involved with the big stack, but play aggressively against the other players. That will be difficult because he's to my left, though. Let's go ahead and get out of the way here. A lot of players might argue a call here. It's not terrible to do so, but I think it's better to get out of the way with the hand we have. We'll just make a small raise here with the king 9. Another reason for not calling there is if we do hit the flop in a mediocre way and our opponent continues to pressure us, which is a common approach for the big stack, then we'll find that we're bleeding off chips here unnecessarily. Okay, we'll move into the money in the top right. We'll let this hand go. You see how I commented upon the re-steals, they could be a lot looser than that. You see here that's the case. This player's re-stealing with ace-4. We'll go ahead and shove this. For pretty much a similar situation that we saw queens earlier. The player just happened to have a really strong hand earlier. And this ace-queen is the same hand that we called with, and that's the player who shoved on us. Just to kind of give you an idea of where the ranges might lie. Ace-queen is certainly a call against a late position re-steal, almost against any opponent. There are a few exceptions to that. These are all folds. Queen 10 from the hijack and the 25-50 can be raised. It's not a great raise, but it's not a bad one either. We did just raise the previous hand, but I haven't been overly aggressive on any of these tables really throughout the course of the tournament. So I'm going to try to get another steal. It may not work out for us, but we're just going to try to accumulate a little more chips here moving into the high blinds. Shove the king 10. Pretty standard here for 10 blinds, blind versus blind. Okay, wait, our steal did succeed over here. I wouldn't. It wouldn't be too tight to fold that. You shouldn't always be raising it, nor should you always be folding it. There should be a little bit of a mixture. When it moves into the 5100 and after, I would lean more towards a raise most of the time. See if any of our other games are about to start here. We don't want to get too many going at once. Looks like we're okay. One of the Ultimate Poker Pros is actually, we'll shove over this up as well. One of the Ultimate Poker Pros is actually loading up this game as well, so we may get to play against him. I haven't played too many tournaments against that player. He doesn't play a lot of sit and goes on here. Here, this is a spot where you can do one of two things. You can either make a small raise or you can shove. Both plays are fine. I lean towards the small raise at 14 blinds, but either play is perfectly acceptable. This I'll just shove for 8 blinds, fold to 10-3. We're going to c-bet here with the ace-4 suited. I'm just going to bet 275. No reason to bet more than is necessary to take down the pot. As you see, that was perfectly large enough bet to take it down. It's unlikely he hit here. Probably would have floated us with an ace high or any pair in the hand. Not that a pair in the hand is really a float. You can raise here as well. I'm going to let it go this time. From the hijack, I'd say it's fairly standard. It's a little aggressive, but kind of standard in this level. Easy shove with the Queen-9 suited here. And we'll shove over this up with the H-Jack. But the problem is we have this short stack here that we'd commit ourselves against, and so I kind of favor a fold. But 8-7 suited, for instance, I would have raised, so it's very borderline. It looks like we'll take down this with the shove with the Queen-9 suited. You can go either way with the King-10. We'll let it go. Shove the Queen-Jack suited. This is also another super borderline hand. Something I would probably raise, I would say more like, something like 60% of the time in this blind level. I have a lot of players behind me who are likely to re-steal or who are committed easily. We've shoved in this game the last few hands. The big blind player is almost committed. We'll let it go with the 10-8. The 7-3 is an easy fold. You should never be folding in this spot where almost half your stack is in pre-flop. 10-4 suited, we'll just let it go. This is a really tough spot. I think here if we shove, we're getting called the vast majority of the time. I think we are ahead of the button raising range. However, the likelihood that this player will call us, along with the fact that this player is about to blind out and is still folding tightly, I think favors a fold here. If he had even 3 blinds here, just a little more to work with so that we had to really respond to this pressure, then I'd probably let it go. But in this situation, I actually think it's to our advantage to let this player blind out, which is fairly likely to happen. A lot of times when you get in bubble or in the money situations and you have an opponent who has 1 or 2 blinds, it has a very drastic effect on the decision you would make, and that was the case there. In any other normal spot, I would have definitely gotten involved against the button range, even if I felt he was committed to call. It's just not worth doing so when you have such a short stack player. We'll let this one go. This player would generally shove here. It's unusual that they make a min raise. Hold the 10-3, fold the Queen-9. We'll be looking to shove at any reasonable opportunity on this one. I'm going to shove any 2 in this spot, just try to steal it. This player has a medium stack and we'll try to protect it. I'm going to call here with the King-3 suited. I don't particularly like it, but against about 8 blinds, we really have to call here with the suited king and heads up. We could be behind, but folding a hand this strong so short is really not the right play most of the time. Okay, we'll fold the King-7. It looks like we'll take second in this game. In general, against players who you know are shoving correctly, like shoving due to the Nash chart, you would be even calling like a 12 blind shove with King-3 suited, and that would be perfectly standard. Even against kind of an unknown, which is the situation here, we'll shove this King-9 suited for 8 blinds. You should still be calling, I would say around the 7-8 blind mark, you should still be calling with hands as weak as Jack-10 offsuit, any suited king, any suited ace, of course, any pair, and decent suited queens. I would say all the way down to like Queen-8 suited. even against a random who doesn't really shove in correctly. We'll fold these sixes against this early middle position, oversized raise. Don't have much fold equity here. We're probably about equal with this range, maybe slightly behind. 10 blinds on the button. I generally suggest shoving king 9 offsuit. If you have especially tight players, you can go with the king 8, but that's not really the case here, as you see with these light defense on the short stacks. Let this one go. We'll keep in mind that this player is making this min raise. He's done this twice now, so I'm not inclined to believe he has an especially strong hand, and we will start to act against it when we have a hand where we have the chance to really do so. Should have another game loading up in place of that one pretty soon here. Fold the 10-3 and the king 8. All right, got another game going here. Okay, ace-5 offsuit from the hijack. We're going to go ahead and shove it. Is this super borderline? The thing is these two players both have less than 10 blinds, in which case we would easily commit our ace-5 against both of them. We're shoving a little deeper than I'd like to through these two players, but it's okay. And we've already passed up a couple marginal spots in the last few hands, and I don't want to continue to do that regularly because then we'll be losing equity. Let the ace-deuce go. The marginal spots we passed up on before gave us the tight enough image that we could take advantage of the marginal spots later. A lot of the decisions on whether you use a certain spot or not depend on your image. 8 blinds here into 5 people. I actually consider this a fold. I think a lot of regs might shove this, but this is the worst kind of spot. We have just enough chips so we don't really need to be risking it yet. Ace-6 offsuit is likely to be dominated by probable calling ranges. If this were any suited ace or any reasonable offsuit ace, I would get all in there for sure. But I think this is a poor shove. I think it's a losing shove, and if I had sit and go wizard right now, I'd plug it in. I'm pretty sure that would be the case. It's not awful, but I would say something like ace-5 offsuit and then ace-8 offsuit or better would be a pretty good range here. Throw the weak offsuit aces and the ace-6 and ace-7 out, and then keep all the suited aces. Would be fine. This is a super standard shove here and a super standard call. Nothing wrong with either play. Looks like we'll take third in this game. It's okay if you want to raise ace-10 in this position. It's especially even better because we have this player sitting out who we're likely to raise through. We'll close this one down. So 2 monies so far is a pretty good result. Still looking to pick up a first place on one of these games. And we have another game loading as well. So this is a good board to c-bet. I would rarely ever check this, no matter what my hand was. Bet a little more than half pot here and just take it down. My c-bets in the early levels, well, it depends on a lot of things, what size I make them, but they tend to be in the 40 to 80% pot range. In the later levels, they tend to be like the 30 to 60% pot range. They do get a little smaller because it takes less to convince your opponents to risking their whole stack. Here, this is a super standard shove for 8 blinds. You would make this shove for 10 blinds against any opponent without hesitation. Of course, sometimes you will run into big hands, but that's still the way to play it. We're going to 3-bet this hand at 350. We're rated to be ahead of a button range, and we want to get this to be a heads-up pot. We do get one caller here. This is an especially good board for us. We are going to c-bet it, but not overly strong. 450. We'll be committing on the turn no matter what. Looks like we'll be eliminated in this game. And even though our opponent could have completed a flush here, we have to commit it with the set. We have about half of what's in the pot. Alright, and our opponent, I don't know why he would call here with just the king-high flush draw. This is a fairly poor play. I would have folded this, but I looked like I timed out. But anyway, this you really shouldn't be committing this strong with just ace-king over. You should have either 4-bet all in pre-flop or just folded on the flop. Either play would have been better. Than you can't be floating the vast majority of your stack and committing yourself in a hand where you just have 2 over cards. It's just the wrong way to play it. He would have had to have runner to even have a chance there. Ace-9 is a super standard shove. It's folded to us. Even if player 1 shoves all in into the gun, I would shove over it. His range of 5 blinds under the gun should be almost any 2 cards. We're going to ISO race with these sixes. It's not especially strong, but we need to be ISO racing some, marginal hands or medium hands as well as those that are strong to blend our range here. Easy shove here with the Jack 10 of diamonds. Looks like games will be loaded up very soon. Just good call with the ace-4, nothing wrong with either play. Sixes here, he leads out. This is a fairly dry board. I'm just going to flat this. No reason to push my opponent out of the pot just yet. I will go ahead and bet here. I don't want to give another free card. I'm going to bet 350, and I'll be committing on the river for most rivers. Okay, this is probably about the best card we could expect here. I'm just gonna bet. Actually, I'm gonna go for broke. I'm just gonna try to put them all in. I think if he would call like 400 or 500 here, he would call his whole stack at this point, and that is the case. He does commit. I was going to make a smaller c-bet to try to get more value, but I really felt that anything that he would have called me down that long with, he would have called for everything at the end. We'll shove the queen-jack here. This is not in any two spot because we don't have a lot of fold equity, but we should be very loose in this situation. Any face card, any suited connectors, any pair, anything like that, probably up to like 85 to 90% of your range you should be shoving in that spot. And of course, players should be calling fairly light as well. 8-10 suited, we raise, got a call. I'll just make a pretty standard 2/3 pot c-bet here and hope to just take it down. Ace deuce here is a little too out of position to raise. It's like we got our other game up. This one is a little bit higher limit than the others. It's still not a high limit game, but it's $27 sit and go. As far as games in Nevada go, this is, I guess, fairly high. There's not a lot of really high-end games going on right now in the sit and goes. This is an easy call with 3-to-1 odds. You have to call with any two. But still, this will be a game where we have several reg opponents. USC Fildo is obviously a very strong player. King Kush, I play against a lot. I don't think he's a strong reg, but he does play a lot of games. Don't really recognize anyone else here. USC Fildo, I've only played against him a few times. One thing I've noticed, he does make, if not all min raises, consistent min raises, and so that's not really a tell about him. That's just a way he plays to conserve chips. We'll shove all over this all in. We could be behind, but against the 6-blind shove from the cutoff, this is another spot where you have to auto commit. Sometimes you're behind, sometimes you're not, but if you're folding hands like ace-8 against the 6-blind cutoff shove, you're just way too tight, and even though you may save money sometimes, when you run into a fairly big hand for someone that's short, all the times when you are ahead, you're losing that money, and that's just not the right way to play it. Easy raise here with the king-jack and the small blind. You could also argue a limp here. Folding is the only real mistake. Either play is fine other than that. Easy shove here with the 10-9. We are in the bubbles, the big stack. We will be playing this aggressively, especially with the short stack to our right. Opponent insta-commits to our left, indicative of, a monster hand here. Nothing we can do about that. 10-9, just to give you kind of an idea as far as a button shove goes, I would recommend, in this situation, you could shove it for even 12 blinds and you'd be fine. We'll just flat call here with odds with the king-jack suited. That's the only disadvantage of this min-raise thing, is a lot of players will get in with good odds against it. This is actually going to be a shove as well. Don't really want to shove the hand after we lost. It may look like we're on tilt and players might call us a little lighter, but this is still a shove, 7 blinds from the cutoff, and we'll do it without hesitation. Easy call with the king-8 suited. We'll just let this one go. You'll also find on the bubble when you have a big stack and you're up against or a couple medium stacks and there's a short stack that's kind of out of position, the medium stacks will be calling tighter than normal. Of course, if they pick up like your premium pair, ace king or something like that, of course, as you saw, they won't hesitate to call, but they'll be folding hands a lot stronger than you might think. This is This is close as well. This is like a 6 or 7 blind shove from the button. I'm going to ice over the top. We could be behind again. I'm just not folding these hands three-handed. I know we've run into a lot of big hands in these games, but I still absolutely believe that we're ahead of these ranges, and I think it's foolish to just fold here. Running into big hands is certainly not an argument for shoving tighter. If you do that, then you're going to lose money all the times they don't wake up with those. This is an any 2. This is a pretty good spot for an any 2 shove, and king high certainly qualifies. This is an easy re-still spot against the button raising range. Anytime you have a raise in front of you and you have between, like, I don't know, anywhere up to like maybe 20 blinds or something, you should be shoving over the top rather than flat calling most of the time. This I would like to commit with any decent hand, but we're just a little too deep with 8-5 offsuit here. Threes. This would normally just be a small raise. However, the play in the big blind's likely to re-steal over the top. We'll just shove with the small pair so we finish all the action pre-flop. It's still a profitable shove to make. It prevents our opponents from forcing us to fold or flat calling us and forcing us out on the flop. King high here, easy shove. And let's see how many other games. Some of these may not load up. Late at night, it's about 11 p.m. here in Nevada, so it's fairly late. A lot of times some of these games won't run as quickly. I'll try to get maybe one more in here. I don't know if I will be able to or not. This is an okay hand to raise. It's a little aggressive, but it's fine. Let's check the 6-8. You could fold this as well. Either player's fine. Either play's fine. Or we get a re-steal here. Even though we have decent odds here, we just can't fold. We've only put 225 chips in the pot, which isn't much to us. A lot of times we'll have a successful steal. Sometimes we won't, but it's not worth calling here. Let the 6-8 go. Looks like we'll take this game in third. So we've had a decent amount of cashes so far, but not a real big win. Hopefully that'll be the case here. We'll probably let these be the last games. Maybe one more if I can get it in. Yeah, I'll try to let up one more. We'll just slip in here with 10-7 of diamonds. We have kind of a gut shot straight draw and medium pair here. I think it's best to just go ahead and check it. A lot of times with marginal hands and also monster hands, I just check here to kind of blend my range. And I'm just going to let this go even for 100. There's not a lot of cards on the turn that would really upgrade our hand. Only a 9 would make me feel fairly confident about it, or another 7. So we'll just let it go. Moving into the 75-150 here. I would have made an ISO raise here if we didn't get a call. I can't really shove over this because it's too deep through this player, and if I make a fairly large ISO raise, I commit myself anyway. We'll just go ahead and let this queen 9 go. I don't do a lot of limping in the 75-150, especially with these short stacks who could just shove over this limp. And this is a reg who is definitely capable of doing it if he picks up a reasonable hand. We have another player eliminated down here in the bottom left. King 9 offsuit, if it's folded to me, I will raise it. In this blind level, you could probably raise this hand from the cutoff. Probably not the hijack very often if you want to do it profitably. And we'll let this 5-6 go and face the raise. I don't like to pre-select my options because it lets my opponents know what qualifiers will make me change my decision. Like they know that there are certain hands I just automatically fold to a min raise, then that gives them information. So I'll just let it go. I'll wait until it's my turn to do so. Rarely is it a good idea to pre-select options, in my opinion, on these tournaments. This player leads out into us. We have no piece of this flop and not much of a draw, just 2 over cards. And with another opponent, it's less likely he's bluffing, and so it's best to just fold it and let it go. All right, our last game has loaded here. I'll go ahead and organize those for you. Uh, 75, 150 here. Not really worth shoving here. A lot of players here are likely to commit, and we're way too deep against this player. So raise would also commit against 3 of them with a really kind of weak hand. So this is just a pretty easy fold here. If I had a decent suited king, I'd make a small raise, and I'd be willing to call one of these players. Super standard shove and call here. Fold the king 7. Ace 4, you should be raising from the button at any blind level. Any ace from the button is always a pretty standard raise. This is okay as well if it's folded to us. Jack 8 suited from the cutoff I would consider pretty standard. We do get a limp in front of us. You could limp behind or fold it. Either plays fine. I'm just going to let it go. I would have tried to make a cheap steal if it were folded to me. If I had Jack 9 suited or something, I'd probably limp here. But this is kind of on the borderline. It's okay to just let it go. Queen 5 suited, I'm just going to limp in here and see what he does. I haven't done this a lot yet. We are in the money right now, and I kind of want to see how my opponent responds to this limp. He does slow us in for cheap. The flop is fairly coordinated and likely to have hit us, so I'm just going to lead out for just a little over half pot and try to steal it. If I get too much action, I'll back off here. We take it down. Release the Jack 4. Even though you saw me limp it in the previous hand, where we had about 20 blinds effective stacks, and now the blinds have gone up to the 100, 200, and for instance, if I were in the small blind here against this player who has 12 blinds in the big blind, my only choice is the way I play stylistically would be shove or fold, and I believe that's the right way to go. I don't do a lot of this limping when I get shorter like this. Good to see Fildo raises my blind here. I would re-steal pretty wide over him. He knows how to call. There's no doubt about it that he would probably range me fairly well. But at the same time, this isn't really strong enough to do. And with this shove right here as well, which is pretty brave considering unless 10 blinds he's likely to be called. Definitely can't get involved there. And he does correctly call this. This ace 10, I believe if I would have made a re-steal, he would have called me as well here. Queen 9. We're going to limp here, and if he raises, I'm going to shove all in. This is the limp re-steal I make as an adaptation to someone playing aggressive back at me for limping in their blind too much. But our opponent doesn't choose to do that, and so I'm just going to lead out here for 200. Kind of do the same thing I did before, make it look like we're just trying to limp in and steal a lot, which we are, but in this case we actually have a fairly strong hand, and my opponent lets it go. We'll be looking to this player to start to try to abuse this now. He'll start to make raises, in which case we'll re-steal when we have legitimate hands. And we'll still be able to be the ultimate aggressor because he hasn't seen us respond to a raise yet. However, if we do limp and he has and he makes a raise and we have a weak hand, we'll still just have to let it go. This Jack 9 here, I'm hoping to get involved with, but we'll have to see what our opponents do. Fold to do 6. Easy fold with the queen high as well. One blind less, and you could probably argue like an any two shove, but we're just a little deep enough here that we can afford it. Here you can either fold or re-steal all in with the jack nine. I think it's best to let it go. If it were suited, I probably would have made the re-steal. We want to see a lot of aggressive raises on our blind before we start coming over the top of the hands that weak, and we haven't really seen too much of that. Here I'm gonna limp just as I did. I'm only preserving the previous action. I would normally prefer to raise this hand, but I limp here because we've limped all the previous times, and it makes it more, it makes it blend in more and makes it less suspicious. I'm going to bet the same thing I did before too. You notice last time I just had a pair, and this time I have a set, and I made the same action. It looks like our opponent didn't really have much to play back at this, because he certainly is looking to do so with all these limp steals we've made. 8 blinds from the hijack is okay to shove an ace. Not the strongest shove, but it is probably pretty break even, and the blind's about to go up and through us. Definitely you could argue the shove here. With this call, we're expecting to be behind. The only hands that would really beat us here, maybe like king queen, something like, or that we would be ahead of would be like king queen. So this is pretty far behind here, but this is still a standard shove for about 8 blinds. Let the queen 8 go. And we will shove over. Well, we can't really shove over. We'll make it 800 here. We're a little too deep to shove through this player, and this is an easy shove with the 10s. Looks like we'll go out against the ace-king on this game. Our opponent calls us here. We do a top pair. Even if we're behind, we'll have to commit. I'm going to bet about 1200 around that ballpark, and then we'll get all in on the next card if he calls us. 8-5, let it go. So we're in good contention to win this game in first, which would be a nice result. Pretty good session overall. Some good luck, some bad. Definitely not overwhelming in one direction or the other. Let the queen 6 go. Ace jack is going to be a standard shove now that we're in the 125-250. Ace-9 here will be looking to get involved with either of these players for their tournament live. Easy call here. This is fine to do. I mean, he may have been caught here. It may work out for him anyway, but this is perfectly fine to do when you get around the stack size to shove these in two. You saw me doing it earlier, and I happened to run into a fairly big hand, as this player did. But that usually won't be the case. Usually you'll steal it without fail, and even when you get called, as you see here, you know, as long as your hand's not dominated, you have a fairly good chance to showdown. This is one of the few times I'll actually limp after a limper in this blind level. We're laid enough position and have enough chips, it's okay. Ace deuce here is going to be a pretty standard fold for between 10 and 11 blinds, or shove for 10 11 blinds. Queen jack is a good call here, nothing wrong with that. So we're not having the best of luck on our all-in collisions here, but luckily we were able to accumulate enough chips early on that we could lose a couple flips here and be okay. Let's check behind with the 7-6. This would normally, I would call this, but with this player already limping in, I'm going to let it go. 6-10 here, we'll let it go. And same with the 7-6 suited. Ten-8 here is a standard shove. You would shove this for even 10 blinds. And we'll let the 10-9 go. We're getting short enough we can't be limping in here. It's not strong enough to isolate it either. 6-9 offsuit, fold. Looks like we're getting even into the high blinds in this camp here. One great thing about these 7-handed sit and goes is the variance is very low because we're still paying 3 players and it's only 7-handed. So that's always good. The payout for first isn't quite as great because of that, but it does lower the variance, and the games go so fast you can get in quite a lot of volume, and those are both nice features of it. We'll fold the king 9 here. Shove the jack 8 for 5 lines on the button, super standard, even into the short stack is standard. Fold the queen 9. And we'll fold the king deuce. It looks like we have another all-in collision here. Super standard again. Any ace pretty much at 10 blinds or less in these games is fine. This call, well, I guess this player was fairly committed. I still think this call with the 4-7 is bad. The ace 3 is fine. Obviously, it worked out well for me that they both decided to call. This first call was okay. The second one really wasn't, even with the good odds. I still think maybe like a reasonable suited connector, I could see the reason in it, but I don't think this was the right way to go. I think this player could have folded. Looks like we'll move into top 2 here. Even with 1300 behind, I'm still going to fold this. We'd call with anything reasonable, though. I would have shoved this into these two players. Not a great shove, but not a horrible one either. This, we don't have a lot of fold equity, so we'll be looking to commit no matter what on the next hand. 2.5 blinds with the blinds going through us. We are going to call no matter what here. King 7 is better than a random hand, so we're fairly happy with that. So it looks like on this one we're going to probably survive because of the split. We definitely moved ourselves in a position to win the tournament, but like I said, we had a couple spots where we called ahead, and you don't always win those flips. That's the advantage of shoving, is you have that fold equity, and even when you are called, sometimes you lose, or sometimes you win. Here, this is a collision that will pretty much always happen. 9s against ace king. Easy shove with the 6s. Looks like our opponent will hit the straight here at the end. You can go ahead and shove for the 5-8. It's kind of like an any 2 shove spot. We have just enough here that our opponent will sometimes fold, as you see, and we haven't been shoving a lot really short. So I just took a risk and tried to accumulate some more chips here. We really need to be making as many moves as we can, because we can't guarantee the next hand we get will be any decent either. We have a very welcome walk here, which we definitely needed, and now we have a little bit of fold equity again. Easy shove with the 10-7 of clubs. We'll probably call with this should he shove. It's another one where you have 7 or 8 blinds, and that's just a spot where you should commit with a hand that's strong. Shove the jack high for about 7.5 blinds. That's also a pretty standard Nash shove. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Nash chart, basically shows you what hands you can shove all in against an opponent and heads up without them being able to exploit it at all. And if they play the exact same system that you do, they'll break even, and if they play any other system, they'll pretty much be losing. That's if they're only shoving or folding. And so it's a pretty standard way to come out with an exact edge against, or an automatic edge against a player who's not aware of it. And then players who are aware of it, you're just going to break even against them, and so that's not too bad of a result either. Here, so we took second. We have this last game here that we're doing pretty well, and we'll be looking to cash in this one as well. Had a fair amount of cashes this session. Of course, we're always going for first place. First place is a lot more valuable. It's as good as second and third combined. And so I always play for the first place. It just hasn't worked out for us yet in this little set of games we've been playing. Hopefully we'll get into the last one. Jack 4, easy fold. As far as shoving ranges go from this position, now that we only have one game going, I can talk about that. You should be shoving 2s plus, ace deuce suited plus, like maybe ace 5 plus. You might throw out like ace 6 and ace 7 here. King 8 or king 9 suited would be fine, like king 10 offsuit, something like that. And there would be other hands in there as well, but that gives you kind of a general idea of how to kind of look at it. Maybe like a queen 9 suited, queen jack, jack 9 suited, Jack 10, kind of like that, and some other suited connectors as well. Here we'll just fold, obviously. This player would be shoving extremely wide here, especially through kind of medium stacks like we have. Would call this player really very wide, but unfortunately we don't have an opportunity here. It's like one of our other opponents might be thinking about it. King Jack suited is going to be a super easy shove for us if it's folded to us. And we'll also call this player an ISO through should he shove. This is kind of a silly raise. It doesn't really change my opinion here. I mean, 6 blinds from the button, King Jack suited raised to be ahead of that shoving range, so we'll go ahead and get involved. Run into a coin flip situation. This is fine anyway. Even if you see where their hand is when you're short like this, it's okay to take a flip in this spot. There's a lot of hands here that we would beat too. Looks like we'll win this coin flip. I can tell you I'm really looking forward to them implementing HUDs on these sites. I normally play more than 4 games at a time, but it definitely makes it a lot easier to remember statistical information on players that maybe you played against before, but only in a few games. You know, with all the hundreds of sit and goes I play, it's hard to remember some of the players. Easy shove here with the ace-8. Fold the 3-7 of diamonds. We'll be looking to shove really wide here, but it's a little too aggressive. Player 1 probably has an any 2 range here, would be my guess. I would shove any 2 in his position with the short stack over here. Almost certainly, unless the player were really loose. This is an odd spot. I'm going to fold now, but had it been folded to me, I would have had to call because it would be 600 to call. I'd be getting better than 2-1. In general, anytime you're getting 2-1 odds or better, and a call and a loss wouldn't cripple you, then you should be calling. Looks like we will move into the money here. Chip leader, we will play it aggressively as always. Let the 10-4 go. I like to shove over limps, especially when I have fold equity in a reasonable hand, but this is not the spot to do it. He's short stack and likely to call. My hand isn't very strong. This flop, however, even though we don't have the ace, I kind of like this flop for our hand. I don't know that I'll commit here. The shoving straight into me I don't particularly like. It's still a hard decision. The thing is, if he has pretty much any pair that he would have been likely to come in with, we're beat here. I'm just going to let it go. It's not the best spot. I might have called 1-bet and tried to take it away if he checked the turn, but I don't think it's really worth calling here. I think I can find a better opportunity. May have shoved this. Most likely would have had it been folded to me. Easy fold again. Easy call. The shove was a little aggressive. I don't really mind it because the other player hasn't really been getting involved very much. So especially with calling, so I don't mind either player's decision here. The call was always okay. The shove is usually okay. Obviously, we're looking to get involved here. This player just calls, we'll shove over the call. And if he shoves, we'll actually get involved as well. So we'll just get all in here three ways. King Jack suited with 6 blinds, we're willing to commit. May lose this hand, but we'd have to lose to this player here, who's likely to have just about anything. And I think our hand even rates to be ahead of what this player might have. It turns out to not be, but we're pretty even actually. King Jack suited against Ace Queen is just about 60-40 situation. Alright, so it looks like we're going to lose to this eventual straight, but beat this player, so we'll end up in second in this game. It's not a bad result. Alright, so that'll be the conclusion of that tournament. So we had a pretty good result here. A lot of second and third places. A little bit of a mixed bag of luck, but still a pretty good session overall. I will be coming out with further live videos in the future. I hope you're all looking forward to it, and take care.